A recent report suggests the Detroit Pistons could trade Jaden Ivey. We'll break down that possibility in today's episode, Locked On Pistons Podcast. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Khahil. I've been covering the Detroit Pistons for the Locked On Network over the last 4 years. Been a credential media member over the last 3 years. I appreciate all of you guys who make Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. In today's episode, we'll be talking about Cade Cunningham's improved shot diet. We discussed this a little bit on the last episode. I want to talk about it even further. And then also I want to talk about a recent report from Keith Smith that he heard from somebody at Summer League that the Detroit Pistons will look to try to extend Duren and Ivey this summer. I'll talk about whether I believe that is true and how their extensions could or will look like this offseason. We'll discuss that a little bit later. But where we start at first is with Jaden Ivey potentially being traded. We had a report come from Clutch Points. And actually, before we get into this, I do want to say, make sure you guys check out that last episode. We had Brett Usher on the podcast. I absolutely love Brett and the work he does on Twitter. Just continuing to push positivity and the love of basketball itself. Not the drama, not the BS arguments, just pushing good basketball clips. Like I mentioned on the last podcast, he put out a full 7-minute breakdown of just Cade Cunningham jump hooks, or Cade Cunningham in and outs, or Asar Thompson alley-oops, or Asar Thompson dump-off finishes, or Jalen Duren short roll passes. Across the NBA, he does it for all just unique, fun stuff about the NBA. I thought that episode was really fun. I think you guys will really enjoy it. We spoke about the Pistons young core the entire episode. He loves the Pistons young core, so I think you guys will really like it if you haven't listened to it already. But now let's get into Jaden Ivey. The report comes from Clutch Points, and I believe I'm saying his name correctly, Brett Seigel. He says, quote, one interesting name in this article. He said, quote, one interesting name came up in early trade chatter entering the 25-26 season NBA Summer League in Las Vegas. Jaden Ivey, coming off his broken left fibula, Ivey is entering the final year of his rookie contract, and rivals teams have questioned how well he fits into the image Detroit has built for itself. Now, the people who have read this article had real big issue for what Brett said after this, which I do think was wrong. He says, Cade Cunningham takes his time and attacks opponents at his own pace. Ivey's an up-tempo guard who utilizes speed and athleticism in his own game. The Pistons as a whole aren't a team that pushes the pace, and they tend to move the ball around on offense instead of attacking isolation sets like Ivey likes to do. Keep an eye on the Pistons, seeking a big upgrade before the trade deadline, potentially including Ivey in said move. Now, this is where I think people like this get themselves into trouble. Just stay with the report. Just report. If you're going to report news, for example, I am not some big reporter. I don't report news, okay? I do hear stuff, and the few times I get stuff pretty confidently, I have went out, like the Duncan Robinson stuff a few weeks ago. I went out and tweeted when I heard that it was pretty close to being done. I went out and said Duncan Robinson and the Pistons are close to finalizing a sign and trade deal, etc. I did not include my opinion after that. I did not include my opinion and how that would work, whether it was a good move. If you're going to report news, just report what you're hearing and leave it at that. Brett ran into a problem here where he reports what he heard and then tried providing analysis for why they felt that way, and he ended up saying things that just weren't correct. The Pistons do run in fast break transition. They play up tempo. Now within the half court, sure they don't play as fast, but Ivey also is not an isolation type of guard. We've went over that many of times. He plays really well off ball, off of Cade. So he started trying to put his own analysis on it. Not very, wasn't, I would say on the mark here with that. But that doesn't mean what he heard or what was told is incorrect. It doesn't mean he was lying about the report. It just means that once these people who try to be reporters start trying to, add their own analysis into it, that's when you run into problems. Just stay, if you're going to report news, you want to be a reporter, just report what you're hearing and leave it at that. With that said, I I buy it. I buy what he's hearing. I'm sure other teams have been interested in Ivey. I'm sure other teams have called the Pistons just to inquire, hey, how are you feeling about Ivey? Because at the end of the day, and we'll get into whether I think the Pistons will actually trade him, but at the end of the day, the Pistons made the playoffs and played extremely well after Ivey went down. Not saying they're better without him, but that is what happened. And when that happens, that's immediately going to result in a bunch of teams contacting your team, your front office, and saying, hey, you just did well without this guy. Are you trying to maybe move off of him? What's your value on him? Can we trade? What's it looking like over there? I'm 100% sure that teams have checked in on Ivey. Actually, I can confirm for you guys that teams have done it. I heard that throughout the summer. Teams have checked in on Ivey. Doesn't mean the Pistons have been actively shopping him, and it doesn't mean that they will trade him, but it does not shock me that teams are contacting the Pistons because of how this last season went without him. I think that's pretty common sense there. Now, I want to discuss whether I think the Pistons will trade him. He's not being traded this summer. Like, if that is trying to be insinuated here, that's not happening. Unless some crazy, just so out of this world favor the Pistons deal comes up, Jaden Ivey is not being traded this summer. Everything I've heard and everything we've heard from Trajan in the press conferences that he's spoken about, the Pistons want to get answers this year. Sadly, they weren't able to get the answers last year because he went down with injury. And the year before that, Monty Williams. And the year before that, Cade went down. So it's just, they haven't been able to get the answers that they'd like, which is enough sample size of Cade with Ivey, Cade with Ivey Asar, Cade with Ivey Asar, and Duren. They just haven't been able to get that sample size, and they want to get that answer. They have time before having to make long-term decisions on any of them. Before they have time to get answers on that, but they want to get answers on it. They want to do that. So Jaden Ivey will not be, traded this offseason. I'll just go ahead and slam the door shut on that one. That's not happening. Could he be traded at the deadline? Sure, but so could Jalen Duren. So could a lot of guys could be traded at the deadline. The Pistons, I believe, based on what I understand and what I've heard throughout the summer, going at the deadline, decisions could be made in any type of way based on how the season has went. If the team is playing extremely well and they feel like they're close to contention, or they're not, maybe contention is maybe the wrong word, maybe towards the top of the East or whatever, and they're having a great season, maybe just let it ride. Let's see what these young guys go. If they're really struggling at the deadline or not taking this next step and you're starting to get some clear answers on some fits with some guys, anybody could be traded. So, could he be traded by the deadline? Sure. I don't put it past that. But Jaden Ivey will not be traded this offseason. By the time when this season starts, Jaden Ivey will be on this Pistons team because the Pistons want answers on him. He could very well be the guy for the Pistons at the two-guard position moving forward. He could be a guy you have to move on from. You just don't have, sadly, because of how this last season went, you just don't have the sample size to make a clear decision one way or the other. And I think, we've said this many a times, that's the most unfortunate part about this whole rebuild that the Pistons have went through. It's about to be year 5, year 6 here. And you still, because of unfortunate circumstances, just haven't gotten enough of a sample size with all of your young core to make decisions. Because hypothetically, or, ideally, I should say, that's a better word here. Ideally, you'd like to have enough sample size to where you would be making a decision right now. Like most teams entering year 5, this is when you'd start making decisions. Okay, this guy we want to move forward with. This guy fits the core we're trying to build. This guy maybe doesn't. Let's move him, and that's the guy we have to move to get the next piece. Like, right now, you usually feel where you make the move. But the Pistons just have not gotten any minutes with Ivey, Cade, Asar, Duren. You have no clue how they could potentially work. You don't know what their ceiling is. Do they fit the best together? They literally played less than 20 minutes together this past season. So it's just, for that reason alone, the Pistons will not be trading any of them, and they will give them at least the first half of the season to see how they play together. And if they do play well together, I really don't think there's any chance of any of them being traded. We just got to wait and see how this season plays out, the first half of the year. But it doesn't shock me at all that other teams are calling about Jaden Ivey based on how this past season went. I mean, I think all of us can understand why teams would look at that and be like, maybe that guy's available. Let's see how it goes. And I understand how maybe someone who doesn't cover the Detroit Pistons will look at this team and be like, well, maybe you should use Jaden Ivey as a chip to go get something else that you need. You've already saw that these guys work together. Let's go get the next piece. I get that too. But it's very clear that most people in Detroit for good reason, don't feel like they've seen enough to make that decision yet. That they think that there's a good possibility that the four of them could work really well together and build moving forward. So I don't think Jaden Ivey's being traded this offseason. I don't think Duren's I don't think they're making it. I think this is the roster you have. It's built to try to give these young guys the best chance possible to prove they can all play together and take this next step based off this past season, and they will be given the chance to do that. And we'll see how that looks in February. In February, we can revisit this discussion. But Jaden Ivey will not be traded this offseason. I don't think that's going to happen, no matter how many times teams call, unless they're just offering a deal the Pistons just can't refuse, which I don't see that happening. I'm sure some teams probably also believe, you want to be honest, they probably also believe they could get Ivey for cheap because he's coming off an injury and they played well last year after he got hurt, and they probably think, okay, maybe we can give him for a bargain here, and the Pistons will just, give him away because, maybe they feel like they don't need him. That's not the case, and good luck trying to get that done with Trajan. So let me know, comment section down below, or over on Twitter at Khahil. Do you believe Jaden Ivey could be traded before the season starts? Do you think he could be traded before the trade deadline? What's your thoughts on this report? Let me know all that, comment section down below, or over on Twitter at Khahil. Coming up, I really want to get into Cade Cunningham's improved shot diet for what I believe is the biggest reason he took a jump this past year into superstar, and we'll break it down coming up. Today's episode is brought to you guys by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing. Whether you're all about baseball under the lights, which I've been watching a lot more of the Tigers games, they're starting to struggle a little bit, maybe because I'm watching. I apologize, everybody. Maybe I'm just bad luck. Or golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and the app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and fun ways to bet. Whether I'm placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like I'm part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Again, if you're new to FanDuel, you just take $5, place it. If it wins, you'll get $150 to play with in bonus bets. So open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. Again, new customers, $5. Win, $150 in bonus bets. Sounds like a great deal to me. Check it out today over at FanDuel. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. I just dropped a film breakdown of Ausar Thompson's quote-unquote point guard game against the Philadelphia 76ers this past year. Something we're doing on the Substack. I'll be trying to get as many of these games out the way before the season starts. Let me know your favorite in-game performances from your favorite players this past year for the Pistons, and we're going to go through as many games possible, breaking down the best performances, favorite performances from this past year. I've seen a few people say they want the Thunder game later in the year broken down. I've seen some people say they want Cade's game 2 of the NBA players broken down. I've seen some people say they want Jaden Ivey's Orlando game broken down. Any game that's your guys' favorite that you guys want to see me break down over on the Substack, we'll be doing it all off season. Again, like I said, we did Ausar Thompson's today against the Philadelphia 76ers. Any other game, comment down below and we'll get it done over at the Substack. Subscribe over there. It's another great way to support me. Really appreciate it. But let's go ahead and get into Cade Cunningham, who obviously had a superstar type of season this past year. He made All-NBA third team. Everybody knows how high I am on Cade Cunningham. I've been very high on Cade his whole career. I've been a steady believer in Cade. I think he can be an MVP type player. I think he's on his way to doing that. And this past year, he really shut up all the doubters, which, by the way, I was going through my bookmarks on Twitter, by the way, and I'll go ahead and pull the curtain back a little bit. I bookmark some of my old takes, some of the things and then some takes some other people say that I really disagree with. And then I go back and look through them at the end of the season. And I remember saying there was a lot of people, I bookmarked a lot of tweets of people respected in the NBA community that were really disrespecting Cade before the year. And I quoted almost all of them and said, he's going to make you guys all look goofy this season. And he did exactly that. And I haven't really seen those people kind of apologize for those, what they were saying about him. But nonetheless, let's get into the real topic here of why I believe Cade took such a leap this year. Now, look, there's a lot of reasons. I think Cade with spacing really helped him. Having some legit shooters like a Malik Beasley, like a THJ around him. Tobias at the 4. I mean, I was on that for years, that the Pistons needed a real 2025 new era 4. Not someone that plays the 5 position and can slide down at the 4. Not a small guy that's not really a 4. They needed an actual 4 for 2025 with Cade. And I think Tobias had a huge difference on that, providing that spacing and that scoring threat from the 4 position. I think that was huge for him. So I think that changed the way teams maybe guarded him at times. Maybe opens up the floor just a little bit more than it was previously. I think that was a huge thing. I think defensively, obviously, he gave, I think, a more consistent effort. And I think he peaked at much higher rates this year, or levels, I should say, this year as a defender than we had at any other point in his career, especially in the playoffs. I think he's one of the better rim-protecting guards in the NBA. I think he can be even better defensively. I think he can be even more locked in, especially off-ball defensively. I think he could be even better. But I think that contributed to it. But I think the biggest reason why Cade took a jump this year, and it's something I talked about all year. I asked him about it midway through the year, and we talked about it last podcast with Brett Usher. He brought this up for why he believes Cade took a big jump this year. And I completely agree, so much so that I wanted to make it a topic on this podcast. It's his shot diet. His shot diet was vastly improved this season of his career. Vastly improved. And I just want to share this real quickly before we get into the exact numbers of his shot diet that I wanted to break down here. I briefly mentioned this in the last podcast, but I want to kind of dive into it even further here. I was talking with the scout a few weeks ago, and we were talking about Cade. And he brought up that he felt like this past year, Cade really resembled a lot of Kobe, where he takes a lot of his shots from the mid-range area and he kind of just uses his size to elevate over guys in that mid-range area, that high post, free throw line and in area, around 16 feet from the rim. Just utilize his size to elevate over guys, his touch from that area to really score and get to that position off the pick and rolls, the snake there. He said he really reminded him of how Kobe loved to live in that area, and he feels like the Pistons should really try to build their team with the idea of Cade wanting to live in that type of area. And you may be wondering, well, Ku, isn't analytics like completely against the mid range? Like, don't they not want? They don't support the mid range being a main facet of your game. No, that's not true. If you're good at mid-range, you should take them. They really just don't. You should not be taking long twos. That's the thing, and that's where we're going to segue here. My overall point here is that Cade started taking better shots from the mid-range this year than he ever had before. Before this year, these were the amount of shots that Cade took from long mid-range, which is considered shots farther than 14 feet from the rim. In his second year, or his first year, 12%, whatever. Second year, where he missed, he only played 12 games, was 21% of his shots from long mid-range. His third year, the year before this one, 18% of his shots were from that long mid-range area. That was in the 94th percentile. He took some of the most shots from long mid-range in the league. It's not an efficient shot. This year, he only took 10%. He cut out 8% of those shots from his shot diet. Don't think it's a coincidence that he had his career high in efficiency, which was shooting 56.5%. Where did those shots go? Because all mid-range shots, 45% of his shot attempts came from mid-range. That was his second career best. If you take out his second year, that's a career high. So where did those shots go? It wasn't like he turned them all into shots at the rim. It wasn't like he turned all those shots into three-point attempts. The three-point attempts actually stayed the exact same. 26% of his shots came from three. That was the same as last year. Shots at the rim, 29%. Same as the previous year. The exact same. So what did he change? He took those long twos and turned them into floaters, turned them into short pull-up jumpers around 10 to 14 feet. And he was one of the best players in the NBA at these shots. 35% of his shots came from the short mid-range area. According to Clean the Glass, he ranked in the 85th percentile on these short mid-range jump shots, shooting nearly 50% on these jump shots. Again, 85th percentile on the type of volume he was taking. It's crazy. You dive even further into it. I go over to Shot Creator. Via Shot Creator, all the players that took paint but non-restricted area attempts which is basically, or non-rim attempts. So basically shots in the paint that weren't directly at the rim. That's basically the short mid-range area. Cade took the third most attempts per game in the league, and the only players in front of him were bigs. Jaren Jackson Jr., Nikola Jokic, big men, taking hook shots, whatever. No other, the closest guard, or let's just say the closest non-big in the amount of attempts taken from this area is SGA, 5.9 attempts. Cade shot 50% on these shots. SGA shot 50.8% on these shots. And Cade was taking 6.9 attempts. No one else even comes close as a guard to this type of volume he was taking on these non-paint shots, or on these, non-rim paint shots. And the efficiency on that type of volume is crazy. That is crazy work. Absolutely insane. Just to give you an idea of what other guys who are considered high volume takers from this area will make sense. KD took 5.5, almost 2 less attempts. He shot 53%. Brunson, 5.4. He shot 53%. Where's De'Aaron Fox? I just saw Fox. Where's he at? 5.6 attempts. De'Aaron Fox, 5.6 attempts. He shot 52%. None of these guys are coming close to the volume Cade's taken from this area. And the fact that he maintained that type of volume, or that type of efficiency on this type of volume, is pretty crazy to me. I love the fact that he went to this area a lot more. His touch from these areas is crazy good on hook shots, on these floaters, these little short pull-up jumpers he takes from those areas after he gives a slight push-off and just elevates over guys. It's his best shot in his repertoire. So going to that shot, taking away the long twos. Taking away the long twos out of his shot diet was a great move. I'm happy he did it, and it is analytical, but it's also smart, and it's a better way to play basketball. Now, the next place I want to go with this is to look at his shot chart. If you were to look at his shot chart, which I'm looking at right now according to Shot Creator, on threes, above the break, he shot above league average. Shot 36%. He didn't take, you know what's crazy, to be honest? He only took 21 corner threes this year. That's actually crazy. He was not spotting up at all for the Pistons, dude. He was not getting any looks from the corner. It was all above the breaks for him. Everything. 394 attempts from above the break. That's crazy. But he was above league average on these shots. On long mid-rangers, like the ones we just talked about, he shot above league average. League average around 41%. K shot 45%. On these non-rim paint shot attempts, he was way above league average. Shot 50% on these. Shot 44%, or he shot 50%. League average was 44%. So I say all that. You're probably wondering, well, how in the world was Cade not considered uber efficient this year? He was above league average from three. He was above league average from long mid range. He was above league average on non-rim paint looks. How was he not just crazy efficient this year? Well, sadly, he was way, 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 way below league average at the rim. League average is 66%. This is compared to amongst guards as himself or players around him. So I'm assuming it's non-bigs when they say that, just non-bigs. So forwards, like wings count too. League average was 66%. Cade shot 56.9%. That's pretty bad. That is really bad. So I say all that to say this. Cade has made the right decisions in the type of shot diet he wants to go with. He's cut out the long twos, even though he's still much more efficient at those than everyone else. He's good from that area. He can still take them, just not as much, which is good, one. He's shooting much better. He's shooting, let's not say much better, but above league average on above the break threes, which, again, love to see it. It's a step in the right direction. He's shooting way above league average on non-paint or non-rim paint shots, which, again, great to see. If he can just improve at the rim, if he can just turn some of those shots, some more of those shots into free throw attempts, if he can turn some of those shots maybe into more floaters, maybe he turns them into floaters instead of layups, if he can just get better touch of the rim and convert some of these bunnies, he goes from shooting 56.9% at the rim to, like, it doesn't even have to be actually league average, like legit. He could shoot 59%, he could be 7 points below league average, and the true shooting would jump to like 58%, 59%. If he were to get to league average at the rim, we're talking above 60% true shooting. Like, that is the one area of his game that he has to improve on still. And if he does improve in that area, the efficiency is going to go through the roof, and he is going to take a massive leap again as a player. Everywhere else he has covered. He's been better. He's above league average at every other area. With the type of volume he takes him on too, that's good. When you have that type of volume and you're above league average, that is good, especially when the majority of your shots come from an area that you're one of the very best at. You take that, along with the playmaking, all that, obviously, all the other stuff in his game. He improves as a finisher at the rim. He's taking a large jump. He's taking a massive leap. So let me know, comment section down below, or over on Twitter at Khahil. How did you feel about Cade's improved shot diet this year? Do you like the shots he took this year? And how do you think he can improve his shots at the rim and become a more efficient finisher this upcoming year? Let me know all that, comment section down below, or over on Twitter at Khahil. Coming up, will the Detroit Pistons extend Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren? There's a recent report discussing whether the Pistons actually will do it. We'll break it down in today's episode. Coming up, Locked On Pistons podcast. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. As I mentioned earlier, we did do a breakdown. Over on the Substack of Asar Thompson's game against the Philadelphia 76ers when he got to play point guard for the majority of the game. It was one of my favorite games from this past year, so I had to do a breakdown of it. If you want to see a breakdown of your favorite performance from this past year, let me know, and we'll go through it. I'll do a breakdown over on the Substack. If you haven't checked out the Asar one, go ahead and do it now. I had a lot of fun doing it. But let's go ahead and move into the extension talks for Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey. This is from Keith Smith of Spot Track. We've had him on the podcast a ton. Keith is obviously known as the cap space CBA guru. Again, like I said, we've had him on the podcast a ton. I'm sure we'll have him on maybe before the end of the season, especially if the Pistons extend Ivey and Duren. But he wrote an article discussing everything he heard at Summer League talking to people. And one of the notes he has in here is from it's on the Detroit Pistons. He doesn't make it clear. Oh, actually, yes, he does right here. I missed this part. It was a front office executive. So he don't know who, but it's a front office executive with the Pistons. On the extension talks with Jalen Duren and Jaden Ivey, this is the quote he got. Those guys are key guys for us. We're not the cap space Pistons anymore. We're the playoff Pistons now. If we want to keep being the playoff Pistons, we need to be really smart from here on out. That means finding the right deal for us and our players. But we love the way both Jalen and Jaden have developed. Look, if we have Jaden last year, we win our first playoff series in forever. We believe that 100%. We're hopeful we can get extensions done with both of those guys to keep them in Detroit for a long time. So, I'm sure a lot of Pistons fans love hearing that this guy said the Pistons would win with Jaden Ivey in that series. I'm sure a lot of Pistons fans feel that way. I'm sure a lot of Pistons fans also believe that Isaiah Stewart was even healthy. They beat the New York Knicks in this first round. And I can't say you guys feel crazy for believing that. The Pistons took them 6 games without those guys, and a crazy bad call at the end of one of those games stopped it really from going 7, potentially. And you guys know how upset I was after that. Going down 3-1, they just eliminated the Pistons' chances of actually winning the series by missing that. You know what? I don't even want to get into that because I'll rage again. I mean, that call was just so bad. But let's get into the extension talks. Do I believe that the Pistons will extend Jaden Ivey and Jalen Duren this offseason? I'll tell you guys what I'm hearing. What I've heard this whole offseason, I should say. And I wrote about this on the Substack right before not the trade deadline, right before free agency started. I wrote about things I had been hearing and how the Pistons may approach future the free agency and the future trade market. This is what I want to say about this whole extension. If I have to guess, I don't think they extend either. I don't think they extend Ivey or Duren. From what I understand, from what I've heard, now again, let me preface this by saying things can change. It's July 22nd. They have months until the season starts. Who knows what changes? But to this point, what I understand is that if the Pistons can get Duren or Ivey on a deal the Pistons believe is a bargain, they'll extend them. If it's not that, they won't extend them. Some of you may be saying already, well, no duh, if they're not going to extend them to a stupid contract. My point in saying that is, I'm not sure if the Pistons and the player are on the same page with what they believe value-wise and what the Pistons believe. Like this guy said in this quote, have to do what's smart and best for the team moving forward, because they're not just the cap space Pistons anymore. They're a playoff team. They have to do a deal that's smart for both them and the player. With that, I question whether the Pistons are on the same page as the player and what the value should be and what the contract should look like. I don't think they're going to extend either guy this offseason unless it's the deal the Pistons want and a bargain deal. And I don't think that either Duren or Ivey are going to take a quote-unquote bargain deal, is I guess the best way to say it. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think both guys have an idea of how, or a belief of how they are valued and how they should be valued. And I think the most likely scenario here is that both of them head into restricted free agency. Now, again, that doesn't mean that they won't extend either one of these guys. If they can get them on a good deal, that year, like next year, you're looking back at it and be like, oh my God, that was such a bargain deal. You got them early. Kind of like how you looked at the Isaiah Stewart deal now, what is it now, 2 years later, whatever. Then yeah, they'll get them on that. But unless it's that, I have been told and I have heard that unless it's that, it's looking likely that they go into the regular season and just wait it out, which I think is the smart approach. That's what I would do. If I was the Pistons front office, I would do that as well. I wouldn't be in a rush to pay these guys, either of them, despite what we saw from Duren and despite what we saw from Ivey before he went down. I'm not paying the premium on either guy because I think even though they've developed well, Duren especially because you got to see him in the playoffs. Ivey, we didn't really get to see him, which is unfortunate. But even though they've developed, I don't feel confident enough in them to give them a premium contract and for sure feel like that's going to be a good contract for years to come. And you have to understand, this whole second apron and new CBA stuff is legit. Like, teams are going to be more careful about this stuff, especially for guys who are not just like proven stars or guys that are proven to be impact players on contenders. Teams are going to be more careful about this stuff. So I think that's all playing into it. Their unfortunate circumstance, obviously, like we talked about earlier, with Ivey going down early, I think hurts all of it as well. Again, maybe the Pistons come to a deal. It's not that they're against coming to a deal, like this executive said. If they can come to a deal that makes sense for the Pistons, they'll do it. But I don't believe either Ivey or Duren is going to take like a bargain contract. I think they have a good idea of how they believe they should be valued. And I think the most likely scenario here is that the Pistons headed in the regular season with both of them as restricted free agents, and they wait the season out and see how they play, and then they extend if they play well. I think that's probably the scenario here for the Detroit Pistons at this point as of July 22nd, 2025. So let me know in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. Would you guys extend Jaden Ivey or Jalen Duren, and what would you extend them to? Let me know. Comment section down below or over on Twitter at Khahil. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. And until next time, I'll see you guys later. Stay safe out there. And until next time, peace out, everybody.